great day to be an Eagle. One more time for the greatest team in America.
All right, Eagle Nation, it is emergency podcast time. Our first emergency pod of the season, Cody. Probably won't be our last, but wouldn't you know it, it comes the same day that we release our latest episode, Deja Vu. Tell me if you've heard that before. So if you haven't listened or watched that latest episode, it is still relevant, which I'll say isn't always the case. We've definitely done these before. It's our 8th season of doing this. We've definitely had episodes that we've recorded, released a couple days later, and they're completely irrelevant with a coaching change or some kind of big news that kind of just derails and negates what we talked about. That's not the case with this. We talk about the JMU loss. We talk about the bye week where head coach Clay Helton is just 1-6 coming out of a bye week. And then we talk about our next opponent, which is Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles, hosting them at Paulson Stadium October 9th, nationally televised game, ESPN2, 8 o'clock kickoff from Statesboro. So yeah, definitely go and listen or watch that on YouTube at some point. But we felt compelled, even though it is a bye week and we were going to take a break. I'm about to go on vacation for a couple days, and Cody's joining us audio only here just by nature of the impromptu-ness of this. But some major news dropped today, Cody. You know, for those who don't know, you know, I live in Colorado. I'm in Mountain Time Zone, 2 hours behind East Coast. So I wake up like most people, around, between 6 and 7 o'clock usually. I grab my phone, I see notifications, maybe anything that's come in kind of while I was asleep. I notice a DM from X, formerly Twitter, and we don't get a lot of DMs, Cody.
Nope.
We certainly get a lot of interactions. It's our biggest channel on X. We get a lot of mentions and replies and comments and things like that, interactions. Not a ton of DMs, but I thought that was a little odd. I get it from an account that I didn't really recognize with the handle Hail Southern 65. And honestly, a bit of a cryptic message where it was just a Google Drive link and contracts in one message, and then another line of contracts, and then an emoji of a thumbs up. That was it. I probably should go back and take some IT training with my company for my day job, because I didn't really think twice. I clicked the link and thankfully it wasn't like, at least I don't think, encoded. I don't have any viruses. I'm not being tracked or anything like that, but it's a Google Drive link, and it's a treasure trove, Cody. It contains not just every current contract of every employed Georgia Southern football coach. So not just Clay Helton, but the coordinators, assistants, strength and conditioning, you name it. There's a subfolder in it that has all the contracts of all the past coaches, dating back to like Paul Johnson. Monken's in there, Fritz is in there, Kevin Whitley, the interim's in there, memos are in there. There's all kinds of stuff. Obviously, the Twitterverse, Xverse, whatever you want to call it, went ablaze, right? Everybody, Captain Clack's on there. He's tweeting things out. He tweeted out the Google Drive link. So if you follow him or can find him, I'm sure you can locate that if you want to look at all this for yourself. We're going to talk through it. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you want to tune into YouTube later, I'll screen share some of this, so you'll see the contracts as I kind of like read through them in real time and go through some of the clauses, the terms, the termination clauses, buyouts, all that kind of stuff. Very interesting. A lot to unpack. So yeah, Cody, I realize you haven't said anything yet. How's it going? Thanks for joining. What a wild day.
Yeah, it was a crazy day to say the least. No, it's interesting. It did create a lot of conversation, at least in the first half, and really kind of throughout most of the day today in regard to this. We obviously weren't the only ones who got this link. You mentioned Captain Plaque. I don't know if anybody else got it, but certainly this is something that a lot of folks have been talking about all day today.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. And we're going to try to, I guess, go through, I think, some of the bigger points of what has been discussed and just kind of express our thoughts and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, express our thoughts and give our opinions on where do we go from here. I think that's what a lot of people want, right? I mean, obviously, we've been talking about that on the podcast recently. Obviously, the season at a 2-3 start. I mean, an embarrassing loss against James Madison where it wasn't ever really competitive. You know, it's not the way we wanted to start the season, not the way the coaches wanted to start the season, not the way the players wanted to start the season. I get all that. But obviously, there's been a lot of talk of just like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know, you can't, you know, it's easy to, bring out the torches of pitchforks and call for the head coach's head or coordinators, jobs or even assistants jobs and things like that. But all these things come at a cost. Until today, and again, I guess I should have said October 1st is when we're recording this, until today, we didn't have a lot of that information. We had a little bit on head coach Clay Helton, of like what he was guaranteed. Obviously, he had the 5-year extension at the beginning of this year, announced in January by the athletics department. We had a ballpark kind of figure of like what the coordinators and Brandon Bailey and Ryan Aplin were making. Not a lot of clues into the longevity of their contracts or buyouts, guaranteed money, anything like that. Certainly nothing on the assistants. All that changed today. Again, all the way down to like strength and conditioning coach. So, we would literally be on here for days. We could do an entire season probably of everything that's in this drive. It is a lot, but we're going to just focus on like the highlights. So I took to Facebook, follow us on Facebook if you don't already. Gotta talk, but put kind of the highlights on there for all the. I know there's a lot of people that follow or that are on Facebook, and various groups there that aren't on X. So I just kind of did a recap of what I think are kind of the 5 or 6 biggest highlights. So number one is certainly I think the most intriguing, Cody, and let's just kind of talk through each of these one by one. So Clay Helton. His contract, like I said, it was extended in January. A lot of people were obviously upset by that because he was only one game over 500 at the time of that extension. We were coming off his best season yet in year 3 at 8-5, but we did have, embarrassing loss in the bowl game to Sam Houston and all that. Did not win the East or make a Sun Belt championship game. The biggest thing I think out of all of this is that he has been extended. I want to make sure I say this right. He has been extended 5 years every year that has passed. So he's in year 4. So every year that has passed, there's evidence of this. There's multiple contracts where right now his current 5-year extension runs to 2030. He had one that ran through 2029, one that ran through 2028, right? So every year he was extended 5 years. Now, that's news to most of us. Most people are upset about the most recent 5-year extension announced in January. The university did not announce that he got extended 5 years after year 1 in 2022 or 2023.
So I was going to say that to kind of give a little bit more clarity on the extension part of it, that it wasn't like we were adding 5 years to all these contracts. It was just that at the end of each season, he was given another year, so that it wasn't like it was like now he's at like a 13 or 18-year contract. It's just that after the first season, he was given another year at the end of the contract. So it was always a 5-year contract that he was in. So just kind of clarifying that so that people aren't thinking that he has like this 15-year long
Good
contract.
point. It wasn't stacking. It was
correct.
It wasn't stacking. So So exactly. Each year it was just like renewed contract. Like previous contract would be like null and void, and then it's like 5 years from here. And then next year, 5 years from here, 5 years from here. So again, the current one extends from this season all the way to 2030. Second point I made was what he's currently making. He's currently making $900,000. He will be making $1 million+ starting January 16th, 2027. That will be capped out at $1.1 million in 2030. And I put in parentheses, at least until the contract is restructured again, because those terms can change. So the buyouts can change, and his salary can also change. So the next interesting thing, and I realize I'm not sharing my screen here, so I will share my screen. Is there we go. Yeah, perfect. So the next thing here is buyouts, right? That's really what people want to decipher and figure out. Like, hey, if we do have to move on, I think we might have lost Cody. Hopefully he'll be able to come back in, but I'll keep rolling here. If we were to buy him out and do so this year, basically before January of 2026, it would cost us, and I'm gonna dramatic pause here, $3,075,000. So over $3 million it would cost us if we were to part ways with head coach Clay Helton, like after the season, basically. That drops to $2.36 million after 2026, $1.6 million after 2027, and $825,000 after 2028. Those are all staggering numbers, Cody, obviously all over $1 million outside of the 2028 one. 2028 seems forever away. 2030 seems even further, but it's we don't have that money, it seems. Obviously Cody and I don't have access to the athletic budgets, so we don't know what's going on there. But from everything we hear coming out of the program, those are staggering numbers that we just don't have change laying around to be able to pay.
No, not at all. And so at least from the outsiders looking in, Clay Helton's going to at least be here for at least the next 3 years, if not 4, right? I mean, that's sort of how I look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
To kind of go back to the renewing of the contracts, one of the biggest arguments that we made, that you and I both made for the extension in January, was that we thought that he only had 2 years left at the end of the bowl game.
Right.
And
Good point.
that we needed to do the contract renewal, because how are you going to recruit kids if essentially there's really no guarantee past this season?
You don't know what you're signing up for.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, obviously that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I think if fans would have known that, then there probably would have been a lot more.
I don't think anybody knew it, right? I mean, if the fans didn't know it, I don't think the players would have known it,
But there's obviously would have been a lot more pushback from the fans as to, no, we don't need to renew him again for this after last season. He still has 4 years. That's not going to affect recruiting. Let's see how the next season or two goes, and then we can talk about renewal. But so the deception of that aspect of it really kind of turned me the wrong way as a fan. It just does.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anybody else feels about it. Maybe most folks don't, but.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah. Okay. Again, that's why I led with that as number one. I'm like, it's deceitful, right? I mean, you're talking again, if that's true. And again, we have evidence and I'll show it here in a minute, of, pointing to it being true. Why didn't you announce it?
Yeah.
Were you embarrassed to announce it because we were 6 and 7 the first 2 seasons? And then we had, a quote unquote breakthrough season where we win 8 games. Things are looking up. Cody and I are excited. A lot of our fan base is excited. In our preseason episodes, we were really high on this team. Obviously, it's still a lot in front of us. I get it, but signs aren't pointing to us having a good year, at least not the type of year we expected us to have going in, of, not only surpassing 8 wins like we did last year, but actually winning an East Division title, competing for a Sun Belt championship. It seems like a pipe dream unless it's a massive turnaround in production and just quality of play. So and I feel fleeced a little bit, Cody.
Yeah, no, I that's exactly kind of how I feel. And so again, you couple that with now what the buyouts are for the head coach over the next 3-4 seasons. This is what we have. I don't really see where there's going to be much of a change. And so I think my biggest question is as fans, as alumni who who give and pour money into this, not just this program, but the athletic department as a whole.
Yep.
Sort of where do we go from this? How is if how do I how do we know that the money that we're
Yes.
putting in is being handled in a
In a
good way,
responsible manner, in a
correct?
responsible manner.
Yes.
And I said that, look, I like on this post that if you're watching on YouTube, you see on the screen, there was a guy, Ryan Doss, who's always kind of been in the camp of, I know he's a season ticket holder and a donor and all this. And he's in not necessarily like the pro Helton camp, but just very much like, hey, if you want to complain, like donate, right? Like that's kind of the narrative of that side. And I hear you, I hear that side. But my argument to him, and trying to do it in a very diplomatic manner, was like, look, hey, look, donating to a school, donating to athletics program is an investment, right?
Yes.
It's the same way like you would invest into a 401k or to in stock, the stock market, or what have you. Most people, responsible people, they protect their money and they don't want to invest in entities that they don't fully trust, right? That they can't put a lot of trust in. And the administration, both current administration with Chris Davis, previous administration with Benko, and administration before that with Kleinline, really dating back 10 years since the whole Fritz fiasco of letting him walk, I think largely football alone, there's been a lot of other good things that have happened across athletics, but football alone, I don't think it instills a lot of hope and trust in someone of placing your money into that program, right? Because yes, you can dictate to a degree where that money goes. I want it to go explicitly to the football program. I want it to go to the coaches continuity fund. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I know it used to be, obviously we had the collective and that got restructured or blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of places you can put it. Obviously you can donate just to volleyball, which I've done and things like that. But you can't dictate where that money goes within that program, right? There's no coach buyout fund. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Sure, there's big donors at big schools, blue blood schools like Texas and USC and things like that, where they just write a check and they say, hey, let's get this guy out of here. And it's like, it's a one and done thing, right? Or maybe it's like a small group of wealthy individuals. But for the majority of our fan base who they give what they can, it's completely understandable that they would have reservations to give that money when it's like, look, one, the product on the field is not good. This isn't the Georgia Southern football I remember. And two, we don't know where you're going to put that money. I might earmark that money of like, hey, let's save this away in case we need to buy out Helton's contract or buy out one of the coordinators or whoever it is. But it ends up going to a scoreboard, or stadium upgrades or, a new helmet or whatever, right? Like you can't decide. So I hear you, Cody.
Yeah. So I think that is sort of the big picture thing that I see just immediately with getting some of this information is just that. Again, to me personally, I have thoughts as to maybe why this contract was structured the way that it was. I have no proof of it, so I'm not going to kind of voice it. It's just my internal thoughts. But again, it is for the contract that we have, I would expect there to be better results. And I think the coaches would too, right?
Yes.
I mean, everybody would obviously, but to have the results that we have now, the sort of the performance metrics that we're seeing in terms of the analytics, especially on the defensive side, it's just not there.
Yep.
And so again, what does that mean for us as a program moving forward? Do we have trust that at the end of the season, Coach Helton will make decisions that will improve that trust with the fan base? Whether that's hiring new coaches, whether that is, take your pick as to what that could be. But again, right now,
change of philosophy, playbook, whatever.
Yeah. As of right now, with the season being in the middle of the season, I don't expect there to be any changes because that's just going to add more. I don't say confusion, but more uncertainty, harder on the players, harder on the existing coaching staff. So it's really kind of a wait and see thing until the end of the season. And I don't know if our fan base has the patience for that.
No, I mean, I've said before, we're a fickle bunch. We don't have a lot of patience. And
No.
I think that's what makes this so hard, because this is, I mean, we're down bad. I mean, like
Yeah.
collectively over the span of, 3 years and 5 games, this is, it's pretty bad. It is like we're at 500, in the Clay Helton era. Um, yeah, it's just like, certainly we've had bad years. Summer's first year, he gets fired early on in the second year. Obviously BVG, but those were all very short-lived, right? So this is kind of the
Correct.
longest we've lived with what most people call mediocrity. That's kind of the buzzword that they're using. We've settled for mediocrity, complacency, whatever you want to call it. Certainly not as bad as like Lunsford last year with Whitley as the interim, or Summers, or again Van Gorder. Like, we've had worse years, but it's just like, again, where do we go from here? Like, we don't see things improving. Are we just going to be stuck in purgatory of mediocrity for until 2030?
Yeah, and that's the biggest. That's obviously the biggest fear, I think, with a lot of the fan base. Um, so and here's the other thing too. How much more pressure does it put on the team and the coaching staff specifically to go out and win against Southern Miss next Thursday? I mean, this is a win would alleviate, I think, a lot of the pressure and drama of this bye week. But
Of
a
the bye
loss,
week, I agree. Yeah,
a loss
with
is
the
gonna
new,
just
yeah,
throw this
sure.
into cataclysmic proportions.
The news today, I think it was a reality check, though, Cody, to a
Yeah.
lot of people, because there were a lot of people out there that, they don't know all the details. And again, they just bring out the pitchforks immediately, like, we got to get rid of Clay Helton. And it's like, no, there's
Hmm.
a cost there. Well, what's the cost? We don't have all the details. Now we have all the details. We got to get rid of the OC. We got to get rid of the DC. Okay, what's the cost there? We don't have all the details. Now we do. We haven't even gotten into that yet. But like, so all these things come with a cost, a very significant cost. We've
Yeah.
already covered that moving on from Clay Helton probably isn't feasible anytime soon, at least for the next 3, maybe 4 years. And so we're gonna, for lack of a better term, have to kind of make do with it. And yeah, to you, like, it's putting faith in him. Is he going to make the right decision? Something that, like, has been a criticism of his, right? He's had a lot of coaches come and go, but he hasn't let go of any of those coaches. They've all left on their own accord. They've all left for greener pastures. You could argue, like, over with each one, did like it get worse and worse with like the backfills? But he has yet to like fire anybody.
Well,
You
except for
know,
one, and that was Coach Whitley. I think that's the
true,
only coach
good
that has
call.
been
Yeah,
actually let go.
actually, that's a good call, and that was after the very first year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. No, second year. I think he stayed for Brendan Bailey's first year
Did
here.
he?
So yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Um, I may be wrong on that. So don't
Yeah. And that's
quote me,
interesting
but
because they
yeah.
obviously kept him around because of continuity, right? Retain
Hmm.
the players, retain Lunsford's players as much as you can. He was a player's coach. Everybody loved Witt. Obviously played for us, All American. And so yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. So that's the only
Yeah.
one. But anyone he brought in, right? He inherited Whitley. Anyone he brought in, they've all left on their own accord, like a Richard Owens for greener pastures, or even our first DC, and Will Harris, right, for the Chargers, and then for Florida, and then I think Miami now. So yeah, they've moved on to bigger and better things, bigger contracts, more money, all that. But what he's backfilled with, and quarterback comes up too. Like, he hasn't shown that he'll like move on. Like, he just sticks with the same quarterback. Bryn is the best example there. He was a one and done. We all knew this. led the country in interceptions through 19 interceptions, played him in the bowl game, had a terrible showing in the bowl game, and he kept him out there knowing that he wasn't going to be playing in game 1 of the next season. So like he is loyal to a fault, it seems. So, one of the big criticisms is, can he get beyond that and that nice guy persona that everyone says he has, and like make some hard decisions? And I get it. I'm a hiring manager. I'm a director. I have managers under me. Like you have to make hard decisions. I've recently had to make some hard decisions in my day job, and like you have hard conversations. They don't get easy. It never gets easier, but you got to do it.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one, Matt.
Yeah. So coordinators, let's go ahead and get in that. I would say that's the next biggest, like, kind of meaty thing in all of this. So Brandon Bailey, Ryan Aplin, obviously Bailey 3rd year, Aplin 2nd, as OC anyway. They both make $260K annually, according to the contracts. They're 2-year deals. Like Helton, they get renewed every year, for 2 additional years. Again, not stacked, but renewed, where again, the other one gets like null and void. And then, you get 2 years from then on. So both Aplin and Bailey have guaranteed contracts through next season. So essentially through January of 2027, they have guaranteed deals. So that would mean that we would have to pay out the remainder of their contract. It's not like a 75% type deal, like with Clay Helton, since it's a much smaller base salary, but it would be the 260, right, each,
Right.
essentially for a year, and then whatever is left over of that. So whatever that monthly comes out to, if it's 13 months, 14 months, if they are let go, whenever they're let go, right, it's the remainder of the contract. So
Correct.
So we're looking at what? You're the math person here, Cody. 560-ish K.
Yeah, 520.
520. So like around $520,000 if we were to move on at the end of the season, November-ish, from both coordinators. Sizable chunk of change. Far cry from the $3 million that Helton would be owed. But still, a significant chunk of change. So, yeah, Cody, I guess thoughts on that. Just thoughts on, the fact 2-year deals are pretty common, for coordinators, but again, kind of odd. Haven't heard, any news of the athletic department the last couple of years of Bailey being extended or Aplin being extended.
No, I haven't, but I feel like that is like a common thing with coordinators. So that aspect of it didn't really surprise me much, or catch me off guard. It just really comes down to, if we do move off of them at the end of the season, then we're obviously having to pay out their contracts for another year, plus whatever we got to pay the new coordinators. And that gets into, well, are we going to try to up our assistant
Right.
pool? Are we going to try to up our coordinator pay? And if so, does this affect that in any way? Do we have to,
Sure.
how does that work out? So that's really sort of the big question with that, is sort of how does that money play out with, if we do move on, what can we logistically afford
Yep.
with whoever we hire after that?
Yeah, because the general thought is, right, like, I mean, the more money, better quality. That's generally the thought, not always. But, the knock on the coordinators, obviously, like, performance hasn't been where it needs to be. I think even they would admit that, again, especially on the defensive side of the ball, bottom 10, bottom 5 in some categories of all of FBS, in multiple defensive categories, but offense isn't great either, right? I shared that earlier this week on X Twitter. We're like 98th in like scoring offense, and like 26 points per game, and third down efficiency and all that. Like we're in the 80s, 90s, I think 100 plus maybe in a couple of those, like lower hundreds, but still not great. So Yeah. So the general thought would be, yeah, $520K. If we did buy out both of them, then, you're probably not going to pay the same amount. You're probably going to go up at least a little bit. Is it 300K? Is it 350? Is it 400? All of a sudden you're looking at well over $1 million all in just to swap out the coordinators.
Yep.
Now, typically when coordinators are let go, their stats are let go, right? Like maybe you retain somebody, you like the linebackers coach, you like the O-line coach, what have you. But typically it's kind of a clean house situation. So that, assistants, a lot of them are year to year. We know at least 3 of them from the research we've done are guaranteed contracts through next season as well. So that's Cedric Douglas, the D-line coach, Zachary Langford, the offensive line coach, and James Heiss, the strength and conditioning coach. So I haven't looked at all 3 of those, but like Zachary Langford, $170,000. He's making per year. So it would be, again, yeah, like whatever he has left of that plus another 170K, right?
Yep.
On top of the coordinators, on top of all the things. So you're getting into like probably pretty quickly 1.5 million plus, to completely clean house under Helton and bring in a bunch of new people.
Yeah. And again, do we have the finances for that? I think that's the big question. We don't know that. Obviously, only the athletic department would know that. And then on top of that, the other big question is would Helton actually move on at the end of the season, or would he say, I believe in these guys and I'm gonna give them another year? And because essentially he's not going anywhere.
No.
And so again, the biggest thing that I have is that there's just this cloud of uncertainty of where does our program go, and you really feel like you're at a tipping point, right?
100%.
If we make the wrong decisions, we're going to go in the wrong direction, and it's going to take years to try to get out of it. If we make the right decisions, then we can be on the up and up, and things can look good. But it really feels like we're at a tipping point, and the uncertainty, it's just a fog, right? And we have really no idea how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we've been there before, right? I think with Fritz, it was like that. It's like we have all the momentum in the world. We let him walk. We bring in Summers. He was only here for a year and a half. I mean, technically like two seasons, but obviously let go a year and a half. Set us back, I think most people will say like 5+ years.
Yeah.
Right? Like just that. Like, right. But now we're going into, year 4 of Clay Helton, 5-year extension again, through 2030. Again, probably have him for at least minimum of 3 years, with those buyouts, probably 4. If we keep seeing the mediocrity, if we keep seeing the resistance to change and moving on from things that aren't working, yeah, like we're not just talking about like we could be mediocre or worse, for the rest of this decade. We could be talking, we could be that for like the next 15 years. Like, I mean, honestly, or at least next 10 years. So yeah, it's a serious thing.
The only positivity I could see in that is with the transfer portal and how things work now.
Yes.
You have seen quicker turnarounds in programs. Texas State is one that you can point to.
Southern Miss.
Southern Miss with Huff so far seems to also be pointing up and again, Southern Miss is a great example of that. They've been bottom dwellers of Conference USA and the Sun Belt for the last few years. They finally hired Coach Huff, and he seems to have them on a very upward trajectory as of right now. So I would say that, and if you were look at this, if this would have happened 15, 20 years ago, yes, this could be a decade-long rebuild. But with the way that the transfer portal is now,
you can reload and rebuild if you have a coach willing to do it. Yeah.
Yes, and you can have one, that is, as a great coach or a good coach as Texas State has, as Southern Miss has, and so forth. So, it's not the end all be all, but it will take a lot of work.
It will. Yeah. So, let's see. I will stop the screen share. I'll go into the actual contracts just so everyone sees what we're talking about here.
And I will say this also while you're pulling that up, Matt, is that several other Group of Five schools have changed coordinators and have seen success when they've done so. Navy's the first one that pops into my mind
Yeah, with Chronic.
with Chronic, right? They had a down year. They fired their offensive coordinator. They went and hired the head coach of Mercer at the time with Drew Chronic, and now Navy the last season and this season has been a top team in the American Conference. That's the first one that kind of jumps out to my brain in terms of, when a head coach sees where something needs to be changed, changes it, makes the right hire, and then results happen immediately for the better.
Yep. No, for sure. Yeah. So if you are listening, you're not going to see this. Cody's not going to see this. But if you're watching on YouTube or go back and watch at this point, on the screen, I've got this Google Drive that again was shared with us in several accounts too, not just us, this morning of October 1st. So in this, you'll see, at the top, you got expired contracts. In there, you've got, everybody, man. You got Adrian Peterson in there. You got the old Brandon Bailey and Ryan Aplin contracts. You got Chris Foster, Chad Lunsford. There's some memos with interim head coach Kevin Whitley. Fritz is in here. You've got, like I said, I think it goes all the way back to Paul Johnson. It's again a treasure trove. There's Scott Sloan, former defensive coordinator. Tyson Summers, Vic Cabral, our boy Jeep Wade, Cody. So just to show you that, we won't get into the expired contracts. Again, there's a ton to unpack. We'd be here all night. I think maybe for a rainy day, certainly it'd be interesting to go back and look at like Monken and Fritz and things like that. Spoiler alert, Fritz was only making $300,000. He was on a year-to-year contract. Wanted, not even significantly more money, just wanted a longer term. Kleinlein didn't do it. He walked. That's the story. I think most people know that, but we have just further proof that that's the case. But yeah. So the main folder is everyone that's like currently on staff. So we will start, with Helton. So bring this up. Hopefully it is big enough. I will zoom in there. Oh God, that's big. But so in here, obviously not going to read a contract. It reads like a contract, but you'll see on here, you get to, let's see, where is it? Benefits, compliance, termination. Let's talk about that. So there's with cause and without cause. All right. And this is standard. There's been a lot of questions on X and Facebook and stuff around this of like, how can performance not be for cause? It's not. And that's pretty standard. So for cause in a contract like this, it's going to be egregious things, right? It's going to be misconduct. It's going to be, things like sexual harassment. It's going to be crimes, felonies, DUIs, usually multiple DUIs, cover-ups, hiding things for, that your players did that, like Penn State situation, like, really bad stuff, NCAA infractions, insubordination, all that kind of stuff. Those are for cause things. So if Helton or Bailey or Aplin or any other coaches, is pretty standard, have any of those things happen, that is a for cause termination, and they do not get the payout of their buyout. Performance is considered without cause. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. It's so that's and yeah, basically
standard. That's
very standard. That's not a us thing.
That should not come as a surprise.
Yeah, but a lot of people were surprised by it today. They're like, how can performance not be? It's just not. Like, yes, I've thought about it plenty of times. Like, how do you not have a clause in your contract? Like, right, because you have incentives, right? Most of these contracts have incentives. The one we're looking at has an incentive where it's like, if he makes a bowl game, here's an extra 10 grand. You know, if they get ranked in the top 25, extra 50 grand. You know, if they somehow make the college football playoff, that's 250 grand. You know, that like that's very standard for doing well. But there's never been things of like, if you win less than 6 games, you know, that's a for cause termination, or anything like that. If after 3 years your record is under 500, it's just not a thing. I wish it was, honestly. I think it would like hold a lot more people accountable, because they wouldn't get complacent, like, I'm going to get paid no matter what. But yeah, again, standard is the way it is. So yeah, you'll see here, solely purposes, cause shall be material misconduct, pattern of egregiously unprofessional or unsportsmanlike behavior. I think certainly Clay Helton does not qualify for that. Again, everyone refers to him as a very nice guy. Insubordination, misconduct, NCAA violations, Title IX, like the violations around Title IX with a Title IX coordinator, sexual misconduct. Yeah. So it's all that. And then basically termination without clause, which is section 7.2 of Clay Helton's contract. It reads basically anything that wasn't above that qualifies as without clause, including performance. So there you go. I just thought that was, we don't have to go through this obviously with everybody, because again, it's standard with everybody, coordinators included. But yeah, you can't just say, hey, Brandon Bailey, we're the second worst defense in all FBS, bye, and don't pay him out his contract. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that's not the way it works. And if you've followed, I think, college football for any length of time, and you've seen, obviously coaches get fired from other schools, that it should be very clear that how the win-loss record, or how you perform, or where you rank in terms of other defenses or offenses, is not a for clause for firing. So yeah, it would all be without cause.
Teams would be firing everybody. Right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like on a whim.
Exactly.
If it was just that, it was like, no, you're going to swing and miss. Yeah. Like, things aren't going to work out. So yeah, like if you didn't have something to hold you accountable of like, I'm guaranteed this money no matter what. Yeah. They'd be like, dude, no, you won 2 games. Sorry. Bye. Like,
also too, nobody would want to coach, because who would want to coach in that sort of, situation
environment,
where you're going to make, you're making, what they're making, 6 figures plus, to the next day 0. That's just, just as a personal thing, that's just not right. So
right, correct.
But yeah, that's just pretty standard operating procedures.
Yeah. So then I pulled up kind of Clay Helton's latest contract, which is like the extension, and with this one, so this is the income guarantee. This breaks down what I said earlier. It's section 2, section A, I through 5, or 1 through 5. And it breaks down the year. So year 1, like I said, 900K, all the way up to 1.1 million, in year 5. And then you've got, payments upon termination by coach. Okay, Cody. So actually I was wrong when we were chatting earlier before this. So the 700, I can't remember if we said it on air or not, 750K, that is this year. If he were to leave this year, he owes us, or the school that employs him owes us 750,000.
Okay.
Next year, between January 16th, 26 and January 15th, 27, 500K. 27 and 28, 350K. 28, 29, also 350K, and then 350K. Yeah. So 350K every year after that. So 750K, for this like first year of the restructure contract, then 500, then 350, then 350, then 350. I'll say that I think a lot of people misconstrued that and thought that the 750, because at one point, admittedly, I did, was the buyout. And technically it is. It's the buyout for a team if they want Helton to buy out his contract. But it's not what we owe Helton if we were to terminate his contract.
Correct.
We owe Helton again 3 million and then 2 point whatever it was, 6 million, 1 point something million.
Yeah.
So significantly less.
Yeah.
Which again is standard. That is standard. That's not just like an us thing. I saw some people questioning that and be like, why would there be such a big disparity of that? Why could someone buy him out? Like, buy him out from us for less than $1 million and we have to pay him 3 million. It's like that. I don't necessarily get it, but it is standard.
Yeah, it is standard. I would just think that the numbers would be a little bit higher, but again, that's just me personally. But that aspect of the contract and clauses is a very standard thing that you see, throughout
Yep.
all coaching contracts.
Yep. That's that. What else? I mean, we already covered Aplin and Bailey. I'll quickly just pull up Bailey. I know he's been the one. So again, 260, like I said, year 260 again goes through January 15th, 2027. Termination, same thing. Cause is cause, without cause is without cause. Yeah. So there's that. I guess Cody, from here, I mean, is there anything that you're like looking into? Is there anyone you're curious about outside of those mentioned?
No,
Yep.
no. I don't have
Okay.
any curiosity about anything else. But I just think that it's interesting that this is, I guess you can say, leaked, or this information is put out from an anonymous, I guess, X user.
I think it's safe to say that's leaked now. I mean, look, again, it was Hail Southern
Yeah,
365, more or less a burner account. Like it was like 84 followers or something at the time they messaged
yeah.
us this morning. They're up to like over 100 now. But certainly,
I
not one of
think
the bigger
I think
accounts.
my thing is why hadn't this already kind of been out from somebody, either Savannah media, Statesboro media?
Mhm.
This should be something that, if you're a reporter or if you're covering the team, I would think that trying to get this information yearly would be kind of standard, right? All right, it's
It
February.
should be.
Yeah,
It
and
should be.
and report and get it out, whether it's newsworthy or not. It's still something that you, as a reporter, can have out there and folks can go to and get, and everybody's kind of on the up and up as to what's going on. But
Yeah, it
uh,
does a public service, which is like journalism 101. Inform the public. Again, these are open records requests. Georgia, every state is different. I'm speaking like I know what I'm talking about here. I'm a former journalist. I spent 10 years in the newspaper industry. I covered the team
mhm,
for 3 years as a student at the Georgia, and I filed many of an FOIA request, including former head coach Chris Hatcher, getting his contracts and stuff when no one else would. And and frankly, some of those people are still covering the team today. I think for that reason, because they didn't dig too much. But I did, and I looked at it as like a watchdog. Yeah, it was sports journalism, but like it was like, look, it's a public school. It's part of the university system of Georgia. These are all public records. You just have to go
mhm.
through the proper protocols to get them. This isn't some like weird, like, I mean, it's investigative journalism, but it's not like we're not like uncovering anything like crazy, like, oh, like we're digging in all this personal stuff. It's there for the taking if you know to file the right forms and ask the right questions. Period. Why local and regional media haven't done that for literally the past 20 years since I filed those requests. I can't tell you, Cody. I wish we had someone that would and do it at least more consistently, because one, they're going to get a lot of clicks, they're going to get a lot of views, and people are going to really appreciate the again, the public service they're providing.
Yeah. So I think that would be sort of my, again, we've always kind of had, a struggle with the regional and local media to kind of press, the coaching staff, especially at press conferences and stuff when things aren't going the way that the fan base wants it to go. And I think this is just another example of that, as this is something that probably should have already been out.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been.
Yeah.
Again, you go back to the press conferences. Why isn't Bailey and Aplin at the press conferences to ask to answer questions? I feel like outside of one reporter, the questions that do get asked are kind of just softball questions. And then that's it, and then they move on. And so again, I think the fan base deservingly needs some reporters to start kind of really pressing some of these issues and trying to hold the coaching staff accountable. And if anything, just to me, again, to kind of fend off some of this firestorm that's now happening with this whole stuff being let out today.
Yeah, I agree. And if, for the record, it wasn't us.
No,
it was not us. And yeah, and we don't know who it is. We really don't. Obviously Captain Clack was all over it. He was sharing out, like I said, the Google link and screenshots of all the contracts of the power players, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously there's going to be a lot more developments. The university has been very quiet on all of this. There's been one social post on like the athletics, or at least the football Facebook page since the JMU loss. Maybe that's just a bye week thing. Maybe, I don't know.
I think so. I'm not really surprised by that at all. Yeah. I mean, it is the bye week. We did have a terrible loss. And so I'm not really surprised that they're quiet, and they'll probably stay quiet until Monday when they start, hyping up the media availability and the coaches show and Hail Southern Live, which I think they had another Hail Southern Live this past week, but it was mainly with some other coaches with other sports. But again, yeah, I would assume that this week will be a pretty quiet week on social media, regardless if this came out or not.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll end with this, Cody, and I'll read it to you because you I'm sure have not seen it. But on our latest episode covering that JMU loss and the bye week and the Southern Miss preview, there's not a ton of comments yet because we release it today on October 1st. But is it Cara Vigao 16 is the handle, but a listener of ours left a comment on YouTube. I'm just going to read it to you, Cody, and I would love to get your perspective. I certainly have a perspective on it. I think he was kind of asking for a full bye week episode of this. This has nothing to do with everything we just talked about. He didn't reference the link. He posted this 16 hours ago, so he probably hadn't seen that yet. But yeah, here's the comment. Would love to get a bye week episode, maybe on your thoughts about the last 10 years, because again, we moved up in 2014. Mm-hmm. Since moving up to FBS, the expectations, the realities, where we are heading into the next 10 years. Maybe you can comment on the changing landscape, how that plays into things, and how we can become more competitive consistently. How do we make GSU a place where talent wants to come? I really just become apathetic to the football program. I've seen Facebook groups talk about alumni donations and such, and I don't fully understand how it all plays together. Just a thought for the bye week. And then, yeah, I wonder what the conversation is like in Fargo year after year. Anyway, thanks for the outlet. So I have thoughts, Cody, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think we have a second bye week coming up later in the season, so we possibly could do that then.
Yeah, like a longer
But
episode. I think like
yeah,
abbreviated version. Like, yeah, I'm not saying spend 40 minutes on
I
this.
think honestly, if you look at the past 10 years, my first thought is how much the athletic leadership can determine how well or how poorly your football program does, simply based on coaching hires, and not taking the necessary steps when you have a diamond in the rough like Willie Fritz, to capitalize on it, right? How different would the football program look if we would have just given him a longer term contract and kept him, especially for that 2016 season? How different would our football program be? We would probably be talked about as the perennial school program that made the jump from FCS to FBS, but instead we've kind of become this middle of the pack group of five school that has seemed to have struggled in the last 8 years, mainly because we have made the wrong hires.
Exactly. Exactly. No, well said. And yeah, I agree with all that. I guess I would just add of like, I've never been in the camp of we never should have moved up to FBS.
Oh yeah,
I will never be in that camp. Even if we don't win a game the rest of this season, even if we don't win a game all of next season, I still won't be in that camp.
correct.
I'll
Yeah,
be mad at the coaches for not doing a good enough job. I'll be mad at the administration for hiring said coaches who did the poor job, but I won't have regrets about moving up to FBS. The FCS is irrelevant. It is a wasteland. There's good programs there. They're far and few between. They're stuck in the middle of nowhere of the country, mainly in the Dakotas and Montana. And there's just less parity in FCS. The other schools that were in like the South region and the Eastern region, James Madison, Sam Houston, they've moved up to FBS. So yeah, it's the Dakota schools, it's Montana State, good programs, won a ton of national championships, especially North Dakota State, surpassed us. Big fish, little pond. A stat a lot of people throw out is the FCS national championship, the lowest rated bowl game, FBS bowl game, has more viewers than the FCS national championship
yep,
on average. There's been years where it's significantly so. And that just shows you there's just way more interest in FBS football, period. Um, and and it's some of the bowls we've been in, you know, or at least played in, maybe not those exact years, but like the Camellia Bowl and the other Alabama bowls, like the lowly bowls, the like, whatever people want to call it, the garbage bowls, toilet bowls, whatever. Like they are rated higher. More people have interest in those than, Frisco, Texas national championship game between North Dakota State and Montana State. So, yeah. So I agree with you, Cody. I think we moved up too late.
yes,
And, that's my biggest thing. It's like, no, it's not a question of should we have ever moved up in the first place. It's like, why did we wait so long?
correct.
We were primed and ready to do it, after winning the sixth national championship in the early 2000s, either right before or during our college years. But then, yeah, string of really bad hires, getting away from the triple option, all that. It's just, yeah, that's really been the detriment. But I guess I'll end by just saying this is like, you got App State who moved up with us in 2014. They had a rough start right at the beginning of that 2014 season, got things together, won several conference titles, were nationally ranked several times, hosted College Game Day, beat Texas A&M and some North Carolina and some other Power Four opponents, became a national story. Right now, they're in their down year, really for the first time as an FBS program. James Madison didn't miss a beat. They went from FCS power to like FBS Group of Five darling, College Game Day, ranked. If weird rules didn't existed, they probably would have not only won the East but won back-to-back Sun Belt championships under Signetti, right? He goes and, turns a lowly Indiana program around immediately. And yeah, and Chesney, I don't think is as good as Signetti, but he's still very good. So my point with all that, coaching matters. The
Yep.
right coaching hires matter. It's not just about finances. Bob Chesney makes significantly less than Clay Helton. Signetti, I don't even think made what Clay Helton was making. It's not about like, do you have enough? I mean, it is about, do you have enough money to compete? But we're competitive enough. Can we get better? Yes. Does that need fundraising and stuff? Yes. But like, we have the means to compete at this level. We have to have the leadership and the administration that makes the right hires long term to build this thing where we can continue momentum and be that program that JMU and App State has become.
Yep. I completely agree.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it for our emergency pod. We appreciate you joining us. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like and follow us on all the socials. Leave a review if you like what you hear, whether it be on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else. Let people know more about us. Thank you to our sponsors. Didn't mention them, but Can Cut Tools, premium drill bits and cutting tools, title sponsor of Gotta Talk, owned by Andy Thompson, Georgia Southern alumni. I would love to hear what he thinks of all this, Cody. But we thank him. We also thank Section 103 new apparel company. Go check them out. Section103.com. Use code Gotta Talk to save 10% on your order. They have a whole new Georgia Southern line, hats, shirts, and other clothing for men, women, and children. But yeah, Cody, I guess until next time, enjoy the bye week. It'll be interesting. Follow us on social. Obviously, we'll be staying in tune there with developments of this whole thing today and anything that comes out after it. But likely won't record another episode until after that Southern Miss game. So with that, and as always, Hail Southern.
Southern.
Man,